Well, hello there. Once again, this is Pastor J.D. Hatfield of the Riverside Christian Fellowship in Hernando, Florida. As always, you can find us on the web at voiceofvision.org. Can Christians who believe different things work together on similar things, even when they belong to dissimilar churches, or they have some very dissimilar ideas about doctrine? The answer is yes, if they'll draw the right lines for the right situations. And those lines will necessarily depend on the scope of the work. Let me say it this way. If the mission is broad, the lines are narrow. If the mission is narrow, the lines are broad. And that's a good thing. It's a good and necessary distinction. And more people ought to get a hold of this and save themselves the frustration of wondering why we can't just all get along. We can, if we draw the right lines. So let me do the work of explaining what I mean by that. The members of a local church will need more areas of agreement than the members of a parachurch ministry. That's because a church will participate in a broader spectrum of life and ministry than people who come together for a particular parachurch ministry. Churches are going to draw different lines than parachurch ministries. Our church will have certain doctrines and emphasize certain positions, some non-negotiable, some negotiable, if I could say it that way. And that's why you have different denominations and things like that. They can all be Christians, but they're in particular denominations or local churches. Still, a church can work together with another church to accomplish some common goal, even when they're not in the same group or denomination. Because they don't have to agree on every doctrine to agree on a certain ministry mission. It's a limited partnership, and therefore requires a more limited number of agreements. For example, there can be a lot of different churches that come together to work to provide disaster relief, or who work together in serving line for a soup kitchen. Maybe they come together for a season to advocate for a new Christian clinic. Many examples, you know. I'm sure you've experienced that. Well, that's church to church. Of course, inside a single local church, the lines are drawn differently. In a sense, more narrowly. Full cooperation within a church will require adherence to certain standards, and the number of common commitments will be greater than with a parachurch ministry, because the fellowship is more central, more pervasive, more permanent. The idea is not to make a church unique and so narrow that no one can fit in. We've seen that, haven't we? But what's going on is that the teaching of certain distinctives will not be able to be avoided. Each local church can't be all things to all people. It's the body of Christ in all its different flavors that comes together. And they can work together if they draw the right lines. Now, in a parachurch ministry, those particular church or denominational distinctives are less necessary. The amount of non-negotiables will be less. The lines are broader because the mission is narrower. A parachurch ministry is usually devoted to a more singular emphasis, something specific, a more particularly focused mission. Therefore, it's going to be more limited and minimal in its formal positions. That's good. That way, there's more room for people of different opinions on secondary matters to work together towards that common mission, unless their practice of those opinions hinders that mission. For example, a counseling ministry wouldn't be addressing young earth versus old earth creationism. That would be irrelevant to accomplishing the ministry of the mission. Now, another example would be that of a Calvinist and an Arminian, or a cessationist and a continuationist, or a pre-tribulational dispensationalist and an amillennialist, or a post-millennialist. These can work together in a homeless or rescue mission, for example, unless one or the other pushes their brand, trying to prove their position and focusing on those things as essential to the mission. They're not. A third example would be that of a Christian K-12 school attached to a Pentecostal church, let's say. They teach biblical lessons, but they don't focus on teaching students to speak in tongues, and they don't require teachers to be Pentecostal. And those teachers who aren't Pentecostal don't teach against it. Rather, the school and its teachers focus on academics. That's why they're there. And as far as religious instruction, they focus on the gospel, the existence of God, and the authority of the Bible, things that all Christians agree on. God is real. The Bible is true. Jesus is the only way. Now, societal and political issues may be touched on in clear cases. They will come up, and there will be agreement. The point is that it's a K to 12 school, not a denominational seminary and not a church. So the answer is yes. Christians can work together between the lines in the same place if they will do the work of drawing the right lines in the first place. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of questions and things like that, but that's all we have for today. Until we see you next time, we'll see you here, there, or in the air. God bless you.